What if I told you that Chinese home cooks have been quietly solving the biggest problems in the kitchen for thousands of years, and most Americans have absolutely no idea these tricks even exist? We are talking about tender beef that melts in your mouth, flavor that hits you like a freight train, and cooking techniques so clever you are going to smack yourself for not knowing them sooner. I have compiled 31 of the most brilliant beef hacks straight from Chinese cooking tradition, and I promise you, by the time we hit number 1, your entire relationship with beef is going to change forever. There is also a bonus hack at the very end that Chinese grandmothers have been keeping secret for decades, so do not skip out. Let us count it down. Number 31. Use baking soda to tenderize tough cuts in just 15 minutes. This is probably the most famous Chinese beef trick, and it works like pure magic. Take your sliced beef, sprinkle about a quarter teaspoon of baking soda per pound directly onto the meat, toss it with your hands to coat every piece, then let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes. Rinse it thoroughly under cold water before cooking. The baking soda raises the pH on the surface of the meat, which disrupts the protein bonds and prevents them from tightening up during high heat. The result is silky, tender beef that melts in your mouth. Chinese restaurants use this on cheaper cuts like flank steak and eye of round to make them taste like premium cuts. Americans spend extra money on expensive beef when this simple trick would transform the cheap stuff completely. Number 30. Slice against the grain at a 45-degree angle. Most people know to slice against the grain, but Chinese cooks take it further. They hold the knife at a 45-degree angle to the cutting board rather than straight up and down. This creates wider, flatter slices that have more surface area for sauce absorption and cook more evenly in a hot wok. The angled cut also shortens even more muscle fibers per slice, making the meat dramatically more tender with every single bite. Number 29. Freeze beef for 20 minutes before slicing. Chinese stir-fry depends on paper-thin slices of beef, and the secret is partial freezing. Pop your beef in the freezer for exactly 15 to 20 minutes before you cut it. The meat firms up just enough to hold its shape under the knife without becoming rock solid, making it incredibly easy to achieve those restaurant-quality thin slices. Thin slices cook in seconds in a hot pan, staying juicy instead of turning chewy. Number 28. Marinate with a cornstarch coating called velveting. Chinese people have a technique called velveting that is used in virtually every restaurant across China. After your initial seasoning, add a teaspoon of cornstarch per pound of beef to your marinade and mix thoroughly. The cornstarch creates a thin protective barrier around each piece of meat. When it hits hot oil, the coating sets instantly, sealing in all the moisture and creating that signature glossy, tender texture you taste in Chinese restaurant beef dishes. Without this step, your beef dries out. Number 27. Use Shaoxing wine to eliminate gamey odors. Chinese cooking uses Shaoxing rice wine constantly with beef, and the reason is brilliant. A tablespoon of Shaoxing wine added to your marinade chemically neutralizes the compounds responsible for that strong, gamey smell in beef. If you cannot find Shaoxing wine, dry sherry is a very acceptable substitute that works through the same mechanism. This is why Chinese beef dishes smell so clean and appetizing, even when using less expensive cuts that typically carry stronger odors. Number 26. Blanch beef in boiling water before braising. Before making red-braised beef, Chinese cooks blanch the meat in boiling water for about 3 minutes, then drain it and rinse it with cold water. This removes blood, impurities, and excess fat that would otherwise make your braising liquid cloudy and bitter. Your final braise will be clearer, cleaner tasting, and far more flavorful because the aromatics can do their full job without fighting through all that foam and impurity. Number 25. Add a small piece of dried tangerine peel to your beef braise. Chinese people have been using dried tangerine peel, called chenpi, in beef braises for generations. Drop 1 or 2 small pieces into your braising liquid alongside your other aromatics. The dried citrus peel contains natural oils and compounds that cut through the richness of beef fat, brighten the entire flavor profile, and add a subtle complexity that makes people unable to identify what that delicious mystery ingredient is. You can find it at any Asian grocery store or dry your own orange or tangerine peels in the oven. Number 24. Use the back of your knife to pound beef before marinating. Before slicing or marinating, Chinese cooks flip their knife and use the spine to pound the surface of a whole piece of beef repeatedly. This physically breaks down the surface muscle fibers, creates tiny channels throughout the meat, and allows marinades to penetrate deeply instead of sitting only on the surface. You get far more flavor per bite, and the tenderizing effect is immediate and noticeable. Number 23. Add egg white to your beef marinade. Alongside the cornstarch and velveting, Chinese restaurant chefs often add half an egg white per pound of beef. The proteins in the egg white bond with the meat proteins during cooking and create an additional moisture-locking layer. The result is beef with an almost custard-like tenderness that you simply cannot achieve without this step. Mix the egg white in after the baking soda rinse, along with your cornstarch and seasonings. Number 22. Cook beef in 2 stages with a resting period. Chinese stir-fry masters never cook beef straight through in one go. They sear the beef in smoking hot oil for just 30 to 45 seconds until it changes color, then remove it completely from the pan and set it aside. They finish all the vegetables and sauce, then add the beef back in during the final 20 to 30 seconds just to warm through. This prevents the beef from overcooking and turns tough while the rest of your dish catches up. It is the single biggest difference between home-cooked stir-fry and restaurant-quality stir-fry. Number 21. Use dobenjiang to build instant depth of flavor. Chinese people consider dobenjiang, which is a fermented spicy bean paste, to be the soul of Sichuan beef dishes. When you fry just 1 tablespoon of dobenjiang in hot oil for about 60 seconds before adding anything else, the heat activates and transforms all those fermented compounds into an incredibly complex, smoky, spicy, savory base that would take hours to build any other way. It is available at most Asian grocery stores and even online, and it works in American kitchens on everything from stir-fry to pasta sauce. Number 20. Season your beef with soy sauce before adding any other liquid. Chinese cooks always add soy sauce to beef first, before any water or broth. Soy sauce contains salt and natural glutamates that begin penetrating the meat immediately through osmosis. If you add water-based liquids first, they dilute the soy sauce before it can do its job, resulting in shallower flavor. Adding soy sauce first gives you deeply seasoned beef from the inside out. Number 19. Fry garlic and ginger in oil before anything touches the pan. Every Chinese beef dish starts with this step, and it is absolutely non-negotiable for good reason. Heat your oil until it shimmers. Add minced or sliced ginger first for about 15 seconds, then add garlic. The hot fat extracts oil-soluble aromatic compounds from both ingredients and suspends them throughout the cooking oil, which then coats every piece of beef and vegetable you subsequently cook. Water-based cooking methods cannot extract these compounds, which is why boiled beef with garlic never tastes as rich as stir-fried beef with garlic. Number 18. Use oyster sauce as your finishing sauce. Oyster sauce is used in Chinese cooking as a finishing ingredient added in the last moments of cooking rather than during the beginning. A tablespoon or 2 stirred in right before serving adds an incredible glossy sheen, a rich umami depth, and a slight sweetness that pulls the entire dish together. Cooking oyster sauce too long destroys its delicate flavor compounds, so always add it last and toss quickly. Number 17. Make your own Chinese 5-spice rub for American-style beef cuts. Chinese 5-spice powder is phenomenal on beef cuts that Americans typically grill or roast. Mix half a teaspoon of 5-spice with salt, garlic powder, and a little sugar, then rub it onto ribeyes or strip steaks 30 minutes before grilling. The star anise and cloves in 5-spice create a unique aromatic crust that works beautifully with the char from an American grill. This is Chinese technique meeting American ingredients in the most delicious way possible. Number 16. Use dark soy sauce for color and light soy sauce for flavor. Chinese cooks use two different soy sauces for different purposes, and understanding this changes everything. Light soy sauce, which is actually saltier, is used primarily for flavoring. Dark soy sauce, which is thicker and sweeter, is used primarily for color, giving beef that gorgeous mahogany tone you see in Chinese beef dishes. Using only one type limits your results. Use light for seasoning and dark for color, combining them for the full effect. Number 15. Add sugar to balance savory beef dishes. Chinese cooks add a tiny pinch of sugar to almost every savory beef dish, usually just a quarter teaspoon. Sugar does not make the dish sweet. Instead, it chemically rounds out bitter and salty notes, enhances browning through caramelization, and creates a more harmonious overall flavor. Most Americans never add sugar to savory meat dishes, which is why homemade Chinese beef recipes often taste slightly flat compared to restaurant versions. Number 14. Rest braised beef in its cooking liquid overnight. After making a Chinese beef braise, Chinese home cooks often leave the meat sitting in the braising liquid in the refrigerator overnight rather than eating it immediately. As the liquid cools, the beef contracts and creates a vacuum-like effect that pulls the braising liquid deep into the muscle fibers. The next day, when you reheat it, the beef is exponentially more flavorful and tender than it would have been if served fresh. This patience-based technique costs nothing and delivers massive results. Number 13. Score the surface of thick beef cuts before marinating. For thicker pieces of beef that will be braised or roasted Chinese style, use the tip of your knife to make shallow cuts about a quarter-inch deep in a crosshatch pattern across the entire surface. These channels dramatically increase the surface area exposed to your marinade and allow flavors to travel deeper into the meat during cooking. The channels also help fat render out more efficiently during high-heat roasting. Number 12. Use a combination of sesame oil and neutral oil for stir-frying. Chinese cooks never stir-fry beef in sesame oil alone, because sesame oil has a very low smoke point and burns easily. Instead, they stir-fry in a neutral high-heat oil like vegetable or peanut oil. Then finish the dish with just a few drops of toasted sesame oil off the heat at the very end. This gives you both the high-heat performance you need for proper wok cooking and the aromatic depth that toasted sesame oil uniquely provides. Number 11. Use rock sugar instead of white sugar in beef braises. Traditional Chinese red braised beef uses rock sugar rather than refined white sugar, and there is a real scientific reason for this preference. Rock sugar has a slightly different chemical composition that produces a glossier, more beautiful glaze on braised meat and has a cleaner sweetness without the slight bitterness that white sugar can sometimes contribute when caramelized under high heat. Look for it at Asian grocery stores and use it in place of white sugar in any braising recipe. Number 10. Add white pepper instead of black pepper to Chinese beef dishes. Black pepper is a Western flavor profile. Chinese people traditionally use white pepper, which comes from the same plant but processed differently, providing a sharper, earthier heat with a completely different aromatic character. White pepper is the secret behind that distinctive flavor in Chinese beef dishes that Americans taste and cannot quite identify. It is noticeably different and worth keeping separately in your spice collection alongside black pepper. Number 9. Control wok heat by cooking in small batches. The biggest mistake Americans make with Chinese beef stir-fry is overcrowding the pan. When you add too much beef at once, the pan temperature drops dramatically. The beef steams in its own moisture rather than searing, and you get gray, chewy, flavorless results. Chinese restaurant cooks portioned beef into small batches and cook each one fast and hot, never more than a single layer at a time. Even if it takes 2 or 3 batches, your final result will be dramatically better. Number 8. Use tea to tenderize and flavor beef. This is one of the most brilliant and least known Chinese beef hacks. Chinese people sometimes steep tough cuts of beef in strong black tea for 30 minutes to an hour before cooking. Black tea contains tannins, which are natural compounds that break down muscle protein much like an acid-based marinade. The tea also imparts a subtle, earthy complexity that pairs beautifully with the soy sauce and spice profiles typical of Chinese beef cooking. Number 7. Make a quick beef stock booster with beef bones and ginger. When making any Chinese beef soup or braise, Chinese cooks start with a rough stock made by quickly roasting beef bones or just simmering them for 20 minutes with ginger slices and green onion. Even this short process extracts enough gelatin and flavor to transform your cooking liquid from thin and flat to rich and full-bodied. You do not need to make stock for hours. 20 minutes of simmering bones with ginger makes a meaningful difference. Number 6. Use fermented black beans with beef for umami explosion. Fermented black beans, called dushi, are one of the most powerful flavor ingredients in Chinese cooking. Rinse and roughly chop just a tablespoon of these intensely savory, fermented beans and fry them in hot oil for 30 seconds before adding your beef. Number 5. Let your beef reach room temperature before stir-frying. Cold beef straight from the refrigerator drops the temperature of your pan immediately, destroying that crucial searing environment. Chinese cooks always let sliced beef sit at room temperature for 15 to 20 minutes before cooking. Room temperature beef hits the hot pan without causing a temperature crash. Sears instantly on contact, develops that beautiful Maillard reaction crust, and cooks through evenly without that cold gray center that plagues improperly handled stir-fry beef. Number 4. Use cold rice water, the water left over from washing uncooked rice, as the soaking liquid for tough beef cuts before cooking. Chinese people discovered centuries ago that this starchy, slightly alkaline water breaks down muscle proteins gently and removes any remaining blood and impurities better than plain water. Soak your beef in rice washing water for 30 minutes before you begin any other preparation. The light starch in the water also prepares the meat surface to absorb marinades more effectively afterward. After soaking, rinse with cold water, pat dry, and proceed with your velveting or marinade. The difference in tenderness and cleanliness of flavor in your final dish will make you wonder why you ever did it any other way. Number 3. Use the Chinese technique of oil blanching for maximum tenderness. Before stir-frying, some Chinese restaurants briefly pass their beef through oil heated to about 275 degrees Fahrenheit for just 20 to 30 seconds. This process, called oil blanching or passing through oil, gently sets the protective cornstarch coating, firms the outside while keeping the inside perfectly raw, and primes the beef for that final fast sear. The result is beef with an almost impossibly tender texture that remains juicy no matter how high your final cooking heat gets. Number 2. Build your sauce separately and pour it into the pan last. Chinese people never build their stir-fry sauce on the fly during cooking. They always pre-mix all sauce ingredients in a small bowl before heating the pan. This allows you to adjust the flavor balance before it ever touches heat, and it means you can pour the entire sauce in at once during the frantic final seconds of stir-fry cooking, rather than fumbling for individual bottles. More importantly, having the cornstarch already dissolved in your sauce means it thickens immediately and evenly the moment it hits the heat. Number 1. Master the red-braised beef technique using the Hong Shao method. This is the crown jewel of Chinese beef cooking and absolutely worth learning. Sear your beef chunks in a dry pan until deeply browned on all sides. Then in a separate pot, caramelize 2 tablespoons of rock sugar in a little oil until it turns amber. Add your beef, pour in Shaoxing wine, dark and light soy sauce, water to cover, and your aromatics including star anise, cinnamon, bay leaves, ginger, and dried chilies. Braise on low heat for 90 minutes, then let it rest overnight in the fridge in its liquid. The combination of sugar caramelization, Shaoxing wine aromatics, the dual soy sauce technique, and the overnight resting creates beef so impossibly tender and deeply flavored that it is genuinely unlike anything you have ever eaten. This is why Chinese red-braised beef is considered one of the greatest beef dishes in the entire world. And now the bonus hack you stayed for. The Chinese 5-minute cold water refresh technique for overcooked beef. If you accidentally overcook your beef and it turns tough and chewy, here is what Chinese home cooks do. Place the beef in cold water with a teaspoon of salt and a few drops of sesame oil for exactly 5 minutes, then reheat it very gently in sauce over extremely low heat. The cold water causes the contracted, overcooked muscle fibers to partially relax and reabsorb some moisture. The salt helps draw liquid back into the cells through osmosis. It will never be as good as perfectly cooked beef, but this trick genuinely rescues a dish that would otherwise be inedible. Chinese home kitchens have been using this rescue technique forever, and now you can use it too. There you have it. 31 clever beef tricks from Chinese culinary tradition, plus a bonus rescue hack that just might save your next dinner. Whether you are making a weeknight stir-fry or a weekend braise, these techniques will absolutely transform the way you cook beef. If you found even 3 of these useful, smash that like button right now, subscribe if you have not already, and drop in the comments which hack you are trying first. I will be reading every single one. See you in the next video.